Hi there, I'm Carrie Ellis, author of 21st Century Superhuman Quantum Lifestyle. And this is the 21st Century Superhuman guest show. With me today, I have John Carl from Canada, and I have Vivek from Singapore, who are a couple of the really bright technical guys who are answering questions and working with the Keshe Foundation on these new energy units, power units that we're developing, and that the instructions have been given out all around the world. So, hi guys, how are you doing today?
Doing great.
I'm doing really good, Carrie.
Awesome. Great to have you here. And we hear it's chilly up in BC, right? And
Yeah, a little chilly today. Woke up to some snow this morning. It's been snowing all day, and just barely sticking on the ground. So I don't think it's going to last very long.
yeah. And Vivek, you've got warm weather just like I do down here in Florida, huh?
That's right. It's warm and humid all year round.
Yeah. So we have a lot to be thankful for. And John Carl and I have done a couple of shows already on the healing pens and how to make GANs, which is gas in a nano state. And there's been a lot of information that's come out in the last month or so, month or two. The Keshe Foundation put out live workshops online that we can still watch. You can access them, and we'll have under this video how to access them as long as they're publicly available, on exactly how to build what is called a new kind of power unit. What do you guys call it?
Oh well, we call it the Magrav power unit. You need to really make the distinction between the Magrav or the plasma energy and electricity, because they are not the same thing.
Right. So that's one thing that we want to get into right now. And Magrav means magnetics and gravitational. And we'll get into a little more of the technicalities of that in a minute. But what we want to look at right now that is happening on planet Earth, which is so exciting. And I was just sharing before the show with the guys, the spectrum of people that I end up talking to. And there's the people who are really already immersed in this, who've been learning and understanding how it works. And then there's those who are interested, many who are kind of on the cutting edge and are interested in learning. And then there's a lot of people who still are really programmed in the old system and just say, oh, that's not possible. But what's happening is the birth of our understanding of how to use plasma energy. And I tend to tell the story because it's a very simple story that people like Nassim Haramein, who's a really great quantum physicist, tell us that in 1 cubic foot of space, which I was taught in science class that space is empty, and he was too, but he tells us now we understand in 1 cubic foot of space, there's enough energy to run everything on Earth for 100 years. So this means we are moving, and we call it plasma energy. Is that correct, guys?
Yeah.
At least at this phase of the game as a general term. And this is energy that is constantly flowing. We can call it in torus fields, kind of endless energy flowing around us. And so what we're now developing is tools to access that energy. And I think what's really exciting about the Keshe system, it's teaching us how to make some simple units that can actually dovetail into our old system and begin letting our old system access power in new ways. And in this old system, we have burning coal, we have burning fossil fuels, which is kind of like burning ancient energy in polluting our now, where plasma energy is a kind of clean energy, and it's giving us the opportunity to move into a new way, and a new way of fueling everything we need to fuel. And we're kind of in the baby stages of just stepping into it, and it's very exciting. So can I hand it off to one of you guys at this point and talk about kind of a little more, expand on what I was just sharing about, because I know you're always a little more, got some more details than I do.
Well, most of what you said is absolutely correct. Actually, all of what you said is correct. The amount of available energy not necessarily power, because most people attribute power to electricity. So I'm going to use the word energy. The volume of energy available to us is infinite. There's no end to it, and you can never use it up. I mean, there was I can't remember there's a city down in the States, I can't remember where it was, but they were complaining about the solar energy. We can't use the solar energy because we're going to use up the sun, which is absolutely ridiculous. You There's so much energy there, you can't use it. And Mr. Keshe uses the analogy, if you're thinking in electrical terms, you're looking at a pebble at the foot of a mountain. The plasma energy is the mountain. And when we deal with electricity, we're only dealing with a very, very tiny fraction of the available energy that's there. He made the analogy of a small bottle of GANs is like a nuclear bomb. There's that much energy there. Not that it's dangerous, but that the volume of energy available in such a small quantity of material is so vast that you can liken it to, you got atomic energy right there in that little bottle, and it is not in the conventional sense of atomic energy, but in the sense that this is what atoms are made of that we're accessing right off the bat.
And
And
so again, when you say GANs, just to define that, we're talking about gas in a nano state where the atomic structure is actually expanded in order to be able to receive or carry through it more of this plasma energy, correct?
well, it also radiates the plasma energy. In the
Mhm.
Magrav units, we add GANs to the unit as a power source. That's where the energy that drives everything comes from, is the GANs, and drawing it in from the environment as well. And just like the ocean, you can take a glass of water, a glass, and dip a glass of water out of the ocean. There isn't a hole there. It instantly fills all of that up. And as we do this with the universal energies, exactly the same thing happens. When we start one of these plasma units, even a health pen, if you could visualize the fields that you're working with a health pen, when you put that intent on it, you would see this inrush of these fields into this pen. And it comes out the other end. You're not taking anything away. You're simply adjusting it, giving it a purpose, and letting it dissipate back into the field itself. So you're not using up anything. You're changing it in one form, it goes in, makes an adjustment, changes back to that form, and dissipates back into the universe.
That's really exciting. And that's kind of what we've learned about a torus field, that it is energy just continuously circulating. And Nassim Haramein tells us that this universe we live in is torus field within torus field within torus field, which is just one way to picture it. And a torus field is kind of a donut shaped field of energy that's constantly circulating. But this is so exciting what we're beginning to understand. I mean, it's just how lucky, how blessed are we all to be on the cutting edge of this wave of understanding that's coming. And we're getting to learn about on a daily basis. And I'm personally really grateful to be in the periphery of the Keshe Institute environment and being able to be part of forums and discussion groups and listening. There's people now, one of the really exciting things that happened, and I mentioned this in our other shows, but I'll repeat it here, is the professors from in Ohio who developed 3D printing kind of initiated a process called open source, which means as we gain this new knowledge, instead of one person sitting in their garage and experimenting with it or whatever, basement, and then having somebody just come and steal the plans and take them out, which has happened, over the last few hundred years with some really big advancements. Instead, we give it out to the world, and it's called open source. And that means everyone. Now, how many people do you think this the Keshe information is now in the hands of? I know, JC, you were giving me some stats on that the other day.
Well, Mr. Keshe, through Interpol, they have very, very good tools, and they look at all sources of reference on the internet. And right now, the Keshe Foundation is, I can't say if it's almost as big or if it's larger, but we're very, very close to as big as Google.
That is incredible.
Yes.
That's huge.
So easily hundreds of millions.
Wow. And so what is exciting about this, the blueprints for making a Magrav power unit and blueprints for the healing pen and information on making GANs, nano coating, creating gas in it, developing gas in its nano state. All of this information has been given to the public. So literally millions of people have it in their hands at this point and are practicing, learning, experimenting, discussing. So it isn't a secret. It is, and all these minds being applied to it. You know, we've got people in the Philippines developing, they've got a whole little plant where they're making GANs and developing healing pens and Magrav units and different countries around the world. And so we've got brilliant, I mean, I say there's 7 billion brilliant people on the planet. There's just been, we've been living in this old style of kind of, you know, the 1% harvesting off of the 99%. And we're ready for that to change. That as the Occupy movement, a mainstream movement demonstrated, people are ready to be participants in this revolution, this movement ahead of our own extraordinary being. And so being able to develop these units all over the world, and we're going to have Vivek show us in just a minute what he's developed there in Singapore. But we have, so we're, all three of us are in the periphery. You guys are answering questions all the time that are coming from the public, and I am as well because of doing these videos. So we have people asking us questions, but we're also getting to be in the periphery of the discussion that's going on for everybody that is having the ahas and who are developing these things and starting to see them work. And so at the end, we're going to share some really exciting information that somebody's already come in touch with. That's kind of the next level of this. But meanwhile, let's just go forward and share. Do we want to move on to Vivek and sharing with us how the Magrav unit works? And then you guys can discuss that between you and kind of share that information. And I'll jump in if I have a question.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm from Singapore, and from what I know, there's two of us here in Singapore who have already built and have Magrav units that are running. Let me just quickly switch over to the other camera. Takes a little bit of time. Okay, what you are seeing right now on your screen, this is a working Magrav's power unit. As you can see, it's plugged into the wall, and the current load on the unit is about 335, 340 watts
And
at the Magrav's unit.
Vivek, what's really exciting is that really just about anyone can build one of these at home, right?
That's right. Anyone can build this at home. You just need a basic set of tools. A power drill is good, but if you do not have one, you can actually wind the coils by hand. All you need is a rod that's straight and cylindrical, and you can do all of this at home. It's quite easy to do.
So should we mention, Vivek, we're not going to go today. We'll be looking at different parts that JC has, but we're not going to go into the entire structuring of one of these, correct?
That's right. Right now, what
So,
we're going to see is the operation of the unit itself. Now,
so what we'll put under this video are some links to videos that do have some of the classes that show how to make this, and also the where the blueprints are, because anyone in the world can download the blueprints. But anyway, go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to say we're kind of going into, let's see what it looks like and how it works once it's built.
Okay. What we need to keep in mind is that this is not an energy generator. It is a hybrid unit. It's a Magrav's power unit, which needs to be plugged into the wall in order for it to work. The reason why it needs to be plugged into the wall is because that's the way that you tell plasma this is how electricity behaves, and this is what my devices need in order to be powered. Please deliver this. And then plasma starts to mimic the behavior of electricity and starts to deliver plasma energy to the devices, which is what you see going on screen right now. The devices that are loaded on the Magrav's power unit are no longer using electricity. They are using plasma. The number that you see on screen from the watt meter, that is the load on the unit itself, but what it doesn't show is what's being put back into the grid. And I believe John can speak a little bit more on that.
Vivek, before we switch over to that, can you just expound a little more? I mean, it's so exciting. I think it's a concept so far beyond what we're used to. But the idea that the plasma is getting the information of how to feed energy into the system from the system that already exists. Can you go into that a little more? Because it's just really pretty mind-blowing. You know, it's mind expanding, I would say, because we have to expand our thinking in order to even comprehend this. So could you explain a little more about that?
Sure. The way I think about it is this, and this is something that people need to wrap their minds around. Plasma is conscious. Plasma is conscious. So when you put your intent into the plasma, that is what you get out of it. What we're doing over here is putting an intent into the plasma in a slightly different way. We are not really thinking about it, but we are putting it in a very physical way via electricity. We are connecting it to the grid, and we are showing plasma this is how electricity works. This is the characteristic. This is what our devices run off of. Now, please deliver energy in the same way. And plasma is delivering that energy in the same way as electricity, but it's not electricity. And the way that I proved this to myself, this was two Keshe workshops ago when Mr. Keshe actually picked up one of his coils while it was connected to the grid. So for a while there, I was fretting. I was like, should I touch it? Should I touch it? And then I said, okay, you know what? Mr. Keshe can hold it, and I've done my nano coding correctly. My intentions are pure. I can do it as well. And I just picked up the coil. It felt awesome. It felt like there was a
Wow,
brand new power source coursing through my body, and
cool.
the best part is when that coil was exposed and we had nightly meetings where I was very tired, I would just go to the coil every half an hour. I would pick it up and I would just hold it for about 3 to 5 minutes, put it back down, come back and sit down energized and carry on with the meeting.
Wow. And that was one of the coils that was already built into your unit?
That's right. That was before I had assembled everything into the blue box that you see on screen right now.
That's a
That
cute
was
little blue box. I like that. Where did you get
yeah.
that thing?
I bought that at the supermarket. It's actually a stationery holder, which is very
Nice.
cutesy. But I found that the dimensions of the drawers were perfect for what I needed it to be.
Very cool. And as we can say right here that people are making all different kinds of things to hold their unit. You just need three little plastic shelves and something to surround it. But that's really awesome. I love it. Um,
That's right. The only downside with this setup is that I'm not able to touch my coils anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a fourth coil to this. And anyway, that's what
mm,
Mr. Cash has told us to do. If you want to amplify the performance of this unit, add the fourth coil as a cascade to the whole system. And once I do that, I will put that on a plastic plate, and I'll leave it out in the open. So anytime I feel like I need to be energized or I just need a pick me up, I just go and pick it up.
that is so exciting. And are your coils coated with, I know they're nano coated, and do they also have a light GaNs coating on them?
Yes, that's right. If you go to the Keshe Foundation website, there are three videos over there that come from the Philippines team, which show how to nano code and so on and so forth. But one of the videos show how to GANS coat the coils. It's a very, very light coating.
Okay, and we will put the links to those videos under this one. I'd like to make all this material as accessible to people as we can. Um, so just one quick question, because we're always told if we're going to touch this stuff to wear like rubber gloves so we're not putting our fingerprints or oil, body oil on it. But do you just go and pick up the coil within your bare hands?
I did. I just picked it up
You did.
barehanded, and because that was how Mr. Cash did it. Because the thing is, during the process of assembly, what we don't want to happen is our own oils to get onto the materials. That might cause a little bit of problem in the manufacture process. But once it is up and running, the nano coating is constantly replenishing itself. Even if it gets damaged a little bit, it'll heal itself. So it's okay. You can actually go and pick it up by hand.
And so um, another point on this is that the system kind of adapts to the person who's around it all the time. Isn't that correct? It adapts to your environment and to you, and it's kind of responsive to your energy field.
That's right, because being the person who manufactures the device, you are effectively putting a part of you into the device. So the device is going to respond to you in a very, very personal way. Now, I'm a pretty mellow, low energy kind of person. I don't jump around and get all excited. So the unit, the way it works is also very laid back, very chilled out. And when I pick it up, it gives me a nice boost of energy, but it doesn't do it in a very shocking way. It does it in a very in a very smooth flowing way, I would say. Now, here's the beauty about the whole system, because if this was just pure electricity, if you were to pick up the coil, you'd be thrown across the room and you would most likely be dead.
Right. So this is where our thinking has to really change in relationship to how plasma energy works compared to electrical.
That's right. And okay, I'll make a confession here. I had actually touched the coils even before Mr. Kesh demonstrated it. That was because I was trying to make an adjustment on the GANS ball that I had put into between the center of the coils. And when I put my finger there, I got a jolt of energy, which at that point it felt akin to electricity because I've been electrocuted before, so I was a bit wary, and I didn't do that again. But when Mr. Cash showed on video what he did, and then I understood that that was plasma that I was feeling, not electricity. I was able to just go and put my hand back, and I was fine. It was a very uplifting experience. I almost cried when I did that. It was so beautiful.
That is beautiful. That is so nice. Really. So you're kind of building a relationship experience. You're building a new experience with this energy process and how it works,
That's right.
right?
What people need to remember is that the Magrav's power unit, although it can help you to save on your energy costs, although it can help you to be more efficient at home, it is not about the money. It is not. Okay, this is the basis of other Magrav's plasma technology devices that are coming up. There was someone who demonstrated yesterday on the Knowledge Seekers workshop that by arranging a few of these units in a certain way, you are then able to create a field which is the basis of the formation of a spaceship. So you see, this unit over here is a basic building block. It's not just about powering your home. It's not just about saving money. It's not just about saving electricity. It's not just about polluting the environment less. We have to look at things in a very, very holistic way. A person who is not feeling very well, they could come and touch the coils. They could pick them up in their hand and use that as a method of getting their body back into balance. If they don't want to use a health pen, they can use this instead. So there are many uses for it, and it's up to us to discover them as we go along.
So Vivek, this is really exciting. Thank you. How about if we switch over to John a little bit, and JC, how about you explaining to us some of your concepts on directionally how this energy moves?
Okay, but first I'd like to just expand a little bit on what Vivek was talking about with the plasma. View the plasma as the ultimate raw material. It
Nice.
is the basis for everything, depending upon what you want out of it. We're learning in the workshops now to create materials. You set your reactors up in a certain way so that the fields interact in a certain way, and that interaction creates materials. Oxygen, water, amino acids, building blocks of life. All of these things are available within the plasma energy. And a lot of
Can you,
people,
I feel like that just went right over my head.
well, if you want to build a house, your raw material is going to be a tree. You take the tree, you adjust it, you change its shape, you change its form into something that you can build a house with. With the plasma, instead of actually physically manipulating this raw material, we can do it with interacting different aspects of this material, of this raw material, this plasma. And some of the devices, like a health pen, it's entirely possible. I'm not certain how to do it. I would have to talk to someone who is very, very strong in energy work, but it seems feasible that you could take two of these health pens, these little devices. This one's not nano-coated, it's kind of a crude one, but they output plasma out of the end of this pen. That's the purpose of it. It's kind of like a plasma laser. So you could take two of these, intercept these, or interact the fields of the two, and create a third condition where that field interacts. That could be programming a glass of water. It could be taking poisons out of food. I don't know the limits of this, but it's entirely possible that by using a simple device, something as simple as the health pen that we showed a couple of weeks ago, to actually make the adjustments in the plasma, in this raw material, to create a condition that you're looking for. Now, okay, that went way off topic. What were we discussing? Directional flows. When I think I mentioned, what was it, the last show we did, I used the terms upstream and downstream. Now, I use those terms because input and output don't apply to this unit, because both sides are both input and output. The energy, this plasmatic energy, is flowing in both directions, coming out of both ends of this device. The device that Vivek showed, right now, he's not using the energy that's the plasmatic energy that's being put on the upstream side, the side that's actually plugged into the wall. Okay, and I use upstream side as in that's where your initial energy is coming from. So you plug it into the wall, that's the beginning of the stream. It flows down through the wire into the one side of the unit, gets converted into this well, it's not really even a conversion. It gets introduced to the plasma that's in the device already, and then that plasma flows down into the downstream side. However, once the plasma gets into the downstream side, it sees a load, and part of that plasma is reflected back into the unit, amplified, and pushed back into the upstream side. So the way it's described on the workshop is the load that you put on the unit on the downstream side is like a trigger. It gives the plasma an idea of how much you want it to reflect. And right now, with the way the devices are designed, we're getting somewhere between 4 and 6 times your load reflected back into the upstream side. To be a little more clear and actually use the wrong words, but it'll help people understand. If you were to put a 100-watt load on the device, it would reflect between 400 and 600 watts back into the back into your wall. So a lot of people have built these units. They put meters on and plugged something in and looked at the meters, and the numbers don't work. They don't add up. I'm not getting any savings. It's not working. It's not working. They're not measuring what's going back. And if they were to put devices between the plug in the wall and the device and the Magrav unit, those devices would run without drawing any extra energy out of the wall. This is where these things really shine. And if you want even more than that, what you can do is put a second unit or a smaller single coil like that on the downstream side of your unit. Put a load on that, so you have that single unit reflecting energy back into your first unit. The first unit sees that energy, reflects more back into the upstream side, back into your wall. So this is called cascading. And this is how you can get a massive amount of usable energy out of these devices. And not necessarily electricity, but plasma energy.
Can you hold that coil up again, JC?
I can switch my camera and actually give you a little bit better
Yeah,
look.
because we haven't. Oh, there's your doggy. We haven't in this show showed people what the coils look like yet. So yeah. Nice. So basically, you've got double coils, right? One inside the other, inside the other.
Yes. You can see. I'll use this for a pointer. You can see there's a coil here, a small coil here. This is the gravitational coil of this outer loop. There's also another same configuration on the inner loop here as well. So you've got a magnetic, which is the outside coil, a gravitational on the inside coil on both of these loops. And these are hooked together in a certain way. This wire right here, this goes to the beginning of my gravitational coil. The coil travels through the inside of this. Then there's a single wire that comes off of the end of that, which travels through it again, which actually picks up more gravitational energy. That wire is connected to this connection here, which travels to the beginning of the outside gravitational coil, which travels around, comes out. You can see right in there. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the video. There we go. There's, again, a single wire that travels around through it again. Where that wire comes out is this connection. That goes to the beginning of the magnetical coil on the inside. Travels around the magnetical coil in the opposite direction. That output of this coil is connected to the output of the magnetical coil on the outside, travels around it, and is output on this wire.
And if anybody, that's really good. It's really nice, JC. It's easy to see. And if anybody's going into overload with that explanation, this is in the blueprints. I mean, somebody like me, I have to go one little step at a time. But it's a really beautiful explanation you have there, and it is in the blueprints. So if you once have the blueprints in front of you, you can follow where each wire needs to go. Yeah,
the way this is wired. What happens with this system is it creates a spinning field. Okay, it causes the plasma field that's traveling through. It's not traveling through the wire. Okay, this one is not nano-coated. I'm not to that point yet. I'm waiting for my landlord to catch up.
I think that's a really important point, though. This system, the energy is not traveling through the wire.
That's right. Once the wire is nano-coated, all it is a structure. It could be plastic. It could be wood. It could be a tree root. It doesn't matter. It doesn't even need to be a conductor. because there's no electricity being conducted through these devices. That's the really interesting thing about this thing. And one
that
thing,
is a really big change in our thinking.
well, it's a really big change in our thinking, certainly, but it's also a really big example of why these things work, so that anybody and their dog can see that they work. Because once you nanocoat this copper, it becomes a super insulator. Okay? When you attach an electrical wire to this input, you're attaching an electrical wire to an insulator. So no electrons can flow into this device. When these three systems are hooked together, you'll have one input and you'll have one output. If you put an ohm meter across that input and the output, the reading you're going to get is in the millions of ohms.
And just to say, because we haven't shown it, for people who haven't seen this yet, the actually quadruple ring set of coils that you're holding there is what's in each layer of Vivek's mechanism over here. So each little drawer that we can see over there has this mechanism that's in your hand in it, wired that way, correct?
That's right. That's right. And then you can also see on Vivek's unit, if you were watching, there's some things hanging off the sides, and those are, we call them plasma capacitors. Now, it's not really an accurate term because it's kind of is and kind of isn't a capacitor. It's more a battery. It's more a way of holding a large quantity of plasmatic energy in a very small space. And it when we add these to the devices, what they do is they moderate the fluctuations that occur. So it's a little bit more of a steady output.
Could Vivek jump in and tell us what those capacitors are on his unit? Or
well, I don't think, I asked him earlier if he had one loose, and he didn't have one loose. They're really hard to see how they're built when they're assembled, but I have some raw material here. I can show how they're built.
I just meant the things you were saying that are on the outside of the box, right?
Yeah.
Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, Vivek.
Yeah, I do have some loose units here that I can show. Just switch back the camera. Okay. This is the first one. Okay, this is what is facing the grid. This is what is facing upstream. This is a whole capacitor, and what you're seeing over here is 27 turns on the spring. So what's supposed to happen, you just get this, is that on this side you would nano coat the whole thing, and then you would coat a piece of baking paper with a light coating of GANs, roll it up, and then let it dry or somewhat overnight, 2 days or so, and you would slide the whole thing inside like that. So the paper would be inside the spring right here. This is
and Vivek, is that what's on the outside of your box?
That's right. This is what's on the outside of one side of the box. If we go back to the box, I'll just switch the video camera around.
Now, are instructions for this in the blueprints, or is this something you've kind of learned?
Instructions for this are in the blueprints. If you see on the left side of the box, what I just showed you is on the left side of the box. What's on the right side of the box is slightly different. It's what's called a split capacitor. John, do you have a unit that you could show, the split capacitor?
I don't have a unit I can show, but I have some parts that I can,
Okay,
that I can demonstrate.
Sure.
And there. Okay. Now why isn't my camera switching? Come on, switch. It doesn't want to switch. I want to pin that. Okay. So essentially, this is essentially the same thing. The very raw materials of what Vivek just showed. This is for a single capacitor, and this is just the coils.
So again, is that Is that 27 coils? Is that
This
your
one, no, this one is 18.
wraps?
This is 18
Okay.
turns. And
And
I'm
what's the
using,
reason for the difference? Is there any explanation, or does it not matter?
Yes,
uh, go ahead. Go ahead.
it's intuition. When I was making the capacitors, it just felt correct. And it's interesting why it felt correct, because when I made the second set of capacitors, the numbers actually lined up. I'll let John show and then I'll explain the numbers.
Yeah, and part of the reason is the number of turns on my large coils are different than Vivek's. He's got 81 and 144 turns. This one is 80 and 160 turns. This was one of the original designs that came out, and through experimentation, they found out that using a slightly less turns here reduced this distance and made the system a little bit more efficient. I'm not worried about efficiency. If I get 10% more of infinity, I'm happy. What is 10% of infinity? I mean, when you have that much energy to work with, a slight improvement in efficiency is not relevant. I'm more interested in having a device that is functional, and the next one I build, or the next set of coils that I build, I will go to the next series. But I didn't see the purpose of tearing this down and adjusting the coils, just to get a slight improvement over an infinite amount of energy. So
Right. Yeah,
right.
that's cool.
And so that's why these are a little bit shorter, but I'm going to have more of them. I'm making 15 total. Now I may make some more, but I'm making 15 total. And the process that I came up with is I wind these coils like this. It's actually wound around this screwdriver. It fits perfectly, and it's a 1/4 inch inside diameter. And I found out, I did an experiment yesterday. This is my center pin, and if I take the center pin and I wrapped a piece of tissue paper around the center pin, and it's a piece about that wide, just slightly wider than this coil itself, and approximately 8 inches long. And I wound that around as tight as I possibly could. And what I was able to do is actually thread that into this coil, just like I was putting a bolt into a nut. And that compressed everything down really, really tight, because it's important when you make the capacitors that paper be on really tight. It's got to be very, very strong. These little ones, these are going to be for the split capacitors. And it's the same thing. The only difference is going to be,
JC, let me just ask quick. On the paper, did Vivek say you put just a tiny coating of GANs on that paper? Is that correct?
yes, it's the same GANs that you put on your coils, the same mix.
Okay.
And you just take the piece of paper, you wet it with the GANs, and some people let it dry completely and then assemble it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let it get just like thick, like putty, so it's almost dry. And then I'm going to wind it all up, because when it's wet, when the paper is wet, you're going to be able to get a much tighter roll out of it. And then when I go to thread it into the coils, I'm hoping it's actually going to be dripping off the coils, and that's my goal. Anyway, but the split capacitors, the way I'm looking at doing them, they will look very much like that.
Cool.
And I'm doing it this way because I'm going to make some that are split in the center. I'm going to make some that are split in parallel, and I'm going to make some that are split opposite.
You know what I'd like to say, because I've been playing myself with making some of these things, and I think if somebody isn't, you're a tool and die person. So for you, JC, it was more of a natural, you already had a background that gave you familiarity with the materials. But even somebody like me, once you start getting it into your hands and playing with it, it's easier than you think. And it's, we're looking at all these different pieces and going, wow, I'd make that one and that one and that one. But just to say, it's really fun once you start working with it. And
Well, it's ridiculously easy to do. I
it
mean,
is. It's really easy.
you can sit, watch a movie. You can sit with your kids and make jokes with your kids. But you take a piece of wire. These ones, this is 14 gauge wire with a 1/4 inch diameter mandrel. That matters. The lengths matter. This piece of wire, you cut them at 10.5 inches long. This one is 20.5 inches long. You take the
So
end.
when you say JC, when you said a 1/4 inch mandrel, tell us what that is. I'm thinking it's the part that's bent back, right?
No, the mandrel is what you're going to wind your coils on.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go
Okay,
ahead.
and this
it
is
does matter the size.
well, it's a convenience thing. They could be 3/8. It could be. I wouldn't go any smaller. I've got one little tiny coil here that I wound on a 1/8, but that's going to be a very difficult thing to work with because that hole is so small inside. So I chose something that's really convenient, and a 1/4 inch seems to work really good, and that's like a regular, just a plain old screwdriver.
Cool.
There's nothing. This is nothing special. This is a Stanley, very basic Stanley Phillips screwdriver. Simple, and that does measure a 1/4 inch. I can get my calipers and show you if you want, but I don't think that's necessary. And
No, I don't think that's necessary. Yeah, go ahead. We love seeing it.
To make these coils, it's so easy. You need to close the end of the wire, make a little loop in the end of the wire, and in my process, just to make this convenient, I bend that loop back at 90 degrees, and then I'll place this on the screwdriver, grab it with my pliers, and I can't do this right under the camera because the wire is a little bit too long, but I just wind the coil. There, it's short enough now. I can just keep going. What have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so that's one of those coils. That's done. Then I'll take one that I finished earlier that's perfect. You can notice it's not the same length because these are a little bit tighter, but that's okay. And I'll snip that off, leave myself about 3/16 of an inch, and then I'll close that end. And there's one coil done. I mean, how easy can you be?
That is very cool, and it's really fun to watch you doing it. And that is how easy it is. That's what I found doing it myself. Wow, I can just wind these things by hand, just take a screwdriver and start winding them around it, and it's really awesome.
You can do the same thing with these coils. It's a little more awkward because that coil is the outer coil. The long one is 10.5 inches long or 10 inches long. So yeah, it's going to take a little bit of winding. That's why we say if you have a drill, go to like Canadian Tire or your hardware store. You can get steel rod, different diameters of steel rod, and you put that in your drill. You hook the end of the wire into the drill, and it just winds a coil, and they're so fast. I think. I do have there's a video out on my YouTube. Cary, you have my YouTube, so you can grab that off of there. And
we'll put that under this video too.
The really important thing when you're making these devices, all of your coils need to go the same direction. Okay, so if we look at this coil, if we follow that wire down, that travels in a clockwise motion. Okay, I can get it close. I'll have to refocus. There, you can see that. If you follow this wire down, it travels clockwise as it goes away from you. That's a clockwise coil. And all of my coils are the same. All of the capacitors are the same. All of the coils here are the same. When you connect your wires together here, you have to wind them all in the same direction. Don't get them mixed up because it's going to mess up your system.
Good info, and it's a very simple piece of information, but really important.
And if you mess up and your first coil is backwards, don't worry about it. Wind them all the same. That's the most important part.
That's good to know.
And some of the coating process, the nano coating process, is a bit of an art. You need a propane torch. You can do this with caustic. It works just fine. But if you're going to do it with caustic, make sure that your coils, I'm going to have to refocus again. Oh, I guess not. Make sure that you've got some space. A little, you don't need very much, just a little tiny bit of space between the loops of your coils. Not really tight like that, but just a tiny, tiny bit of space to allow the caustic to get in there. If you're doing it with heat, if you're going to hang these up, hang that on something, and then take a torch and work your way around the way they do it in the video, they can be really, really nice, tight coils like these ones, because the nano coating will still get in between them. That's the way to go with especially with the heat coating. Even these connections, you can make these connections really tight, and the nano coating is still going to get in there.
I wondered if we could get Vivek to switch cameras, and I see he's doing something with his unit, but and show us his capacitors again. Now that you just showed us how to do the winding, if you could show us again. Were you going to show us something, Vivek?
Yep.
Or
I've just switched my audio source. I've put on my headset. Can you hear me well?
yes, there's a little bit of feedback. Let me turn my audio off.
Okay. What I've done is I've just turned my stacker unit sideways. What you're looking at over here is the solid capacitor with 27 turns. Okay. This is relatively straightforward to assemble. Now, this is the side that is facing the grid. That means the connection from the grid is over here. It comes in here first before running into the three coils in the stacker unit.
Hey, hold on one second. JC, could you mute your sound too? Because we're getting a little feedback from him. See if we can get it a little better. Go ahead, Vivek.
Okay, so from the grid, we have the plug over here, the wire, and it's coming into this capacitor array over here. I have three capacitors in this array. From here, it goes into the bottommost coil, and then it comes out from the topmost coil to the other capacitor array on the other side of the stacker unit, which is the split capacitor array. Okay, that's showing up well. Now, what's happening over here is that part of the output is going back into the stacker unit, and part of the output is then going out to the power strip that's over here that's powering the devices. So this is the reason for the split capacitor array. It's not just a in and out, it's an in and going back into the stacker unit. It's like a torus. When you have the field from the north pole of the torus coming out and then flowing back into the south pole of the torus, that's the effect that we're creating over here with the plasma. And this is what Mr. Keshe brought up 2 knowledge seekers workshops ago. So that's the reason for the split capacitor array. Now let's talk about the numbers. On this side, I have 27 turns on the spring. On this side, I have 18 turns on each of the springs. On my coils inside the stacker unit itself, the inner springs are 81 turns, the outer springs are 144 turns. So we are working in bases of 9. We're working in multiples of 9. It actually works out very well because there's 27 over here, there's 18 over here, and if you put 18 and 18 together, that's 36. So we have 9, 18, 27, 36. It flows very nicely. and it all happens in multiples of 9. So when initially I had the intuition of doing this in 27 turns, little did I know that I would actually be doing these with 18 turns. I didn't know at that time. It just happened. But it happened very nicely because I decided to go with the flow, follow intuition, and everything just fell into place.
Wow. It's really cool. I mean, it's really neat what you've done. And there's a lot of detail there. I mean, if somebody was working on a unit right now, they would be able to follow that. I think for me, just sitting here listening and trying to absorb it all, I can take it in, but it's a little bit over my head again. But again, what I'll say is when you dig in and start working on it and putting the pieces together, it really makes sense, and it is not that complicated.
That's right. And I've actually found another use for this stacker unit because it's in this container over here, and there's empty slots over here on top of the container. You know your health pens? If you would like to energetically cleanse and freshen them up, that's the best place to put them because it's in a
That is
plasma
really
field.
cool. You kind of just set it on the back of your unit there, right?
That's right. This is the pointed end of the pen. This is the end which is curled back in. The springs are over here. You just put it pointed end facing up.
Very cool. And I love the way you just kind of wrapped your pen in plastic and tape. It doesn't even have some fancy container, right?
That's right. You just do it as simply as you can. Whatever you find around your house. If you want to put it in shrink wrap, you can do that. If you have an empty pen that you want to put this into, you could do that. You could put it into anything. The idea is that you want to have an insulation between the nano material and your skin. That's all.
Very nice. Any comments, JC, on that great stuff Vivek just explained?
He's done an amazing job. I'm flabbergasted at how quick he came up with it, and how nice a job he did on it. Other than his connections, when he connected his capacitors together, I'm kind of a neat freak when it comes to that sort of thing. So when I make my unit and release the videos, the connections are going to be they'll be really nice and neat and easy to follow. But that's just me. I can't build it how you feel it feels right to you, because every single one of these is an individual unit. It has an individual personality based on the maker. So if the 18 and 27 don't feel right to you, don't use it. Use what feels right to you. If the basis in nines doesn't feel right, try it the way you feel it's going to work. They all work. This is what I was getting to earlier when I mentioned that when you connect the electricity to the electrical wire from the wall to the nano coating, you're connecting it to an insulator. But when you plug something into the other end of this, the device functions, even though there is essentially an open circuit in the electrical system, because there's a huge insulator in the way, yet your devices still operate. So all of the units that are being built work. If they didn't work, you could plug something in and nothing would happen because there's an open circuit. It's not even connected to the wall anymore as far as the electrical system goes, because there's no matter to matter connection. It's a matter to a nanocoat, which is an insulating system.
That's really exciting and interesting and mind expanding to even think about.
Well, it's something, it's one of the questions that got fielded quite often, especially on the Skype chats. How do I know my system works? I plug something in, it runs, and I don't see any difference, and it's just works. Well, if you've built your system and you've nano coated properly, then yes, your plasma system is working, because your drill, if you plug a drill into this thing and you squeeze the trigger and your drill fires up, it is not plugged into the wall at all. There's an insulator between them. You may as well have the plug laying on the floor as far as electricity is concerned. So if you get anything out of the output, if it drives a light, if it drives anything, your plasma system is functioning correctly.
So I would say, any other input, Vivek, on where we're at right now? Otherwise, it'd be cool to jump into the kind of questions and comments you guys are getting on a regular basis, maybe taking a few of those, and because it does seem to be sort of repetitive. I mean, I have, because of the videos we've been making, I have people asking me things, and detailed questions or making comments. And I know you guys have a pretty strong sense because you've been answering literally thousands of questions that are coming in. And so
Yep, let's just jump right into the questions. In fact, one of the most often asked questions that we get is, how do I know that this is saving me money? Now, okay, fine. We would like to, I mean, given what energy costs are these days, given how the public is being taken for a ride, we would all like to save energy. We would all like to save money on our energy costs. The real way to find out is to monitor your electric bills at the end of each month. Because unless you wire this up in a way that it can measure not just downstream but upstream as well, you're not really going to be able to tell what's going back into the grid. So the way to do that is to monitor your electrical bills at the end of each month. And even then, it's a little bit iffy because some of the newer meters are starting to play havoc. We had an example yesterday of someone in the Knowledge Seekers workshop who has a smart meter, and his energy company is billing him for the energy that he is putting back into the grid. That's what he says. So it's a little bit interesting, but most people should be still on the old style of meters. When you start put energy back into the grid, these meters should slow down and maybe even come to a stop, at which point the meter doesn't run and your energy bills are lower. So monitor your electric bills at the end of each month.
the other thing is, wouldn't you say, I mean, we're really into about the first 4 or 5 weeks of people of the blueprints being out. So everyone has them. I mean, it was about 5 weeks ago that the whole week of Knowledge Seekers workshops were made public. The workshops that I listened to twice a day for very intensive information that Mr. Keshe was giving, so that we could literally start building our own. The blueprints were given out, and really the principle that he's giving this to the world on is that we will be able to achieve peace on the planet as a result of having this information. But because we're only into the first 4 or 5 weeks of many people getting their units built and then and we're talking about a 3 or 4 month adaptation period of the wiring of an entire house, kind of adapting to the nano coating and actually literally becoming kind of nano coated as a result of being in contact with the unit. So we're really just in the early stages, right, of people even being able to see what kind of results they're going to
That's right. Because what happens is that here's an interesting story from one of our researchers. They put their unit into their house. They nano coated the wiring in their whole household. And then after about 6 to 8 months, they took that unit out and moved it to the siblings' house. Now, what was interesting is that their own house behaved as though the Magrav's power unit was still attached, which means the devices in the house were still running off of plasma energy. When in actual fact, the Magrav's unit has been disconnected and moved to the siblings' house, connected over there, and is now starting to condition the siblings' household wiring. So
That's really cool. Those are the kind of stories that I've heard, listening in the different rooms. And that is beautiful. I love that you shared that, Vivek. It's very, very cool.
that's right. A lot of and also some other people who have a concern that, oh, this is got something to do with plasma. It might be mind control. No, this is not mind control. It is trying to get you out of the mind control. It is trying to get you out of the matrix, which is why when you put this up, when you start to nano code not just your household wiring, but the grid, and even your neighbors' wiring and things like that, through the weeks and months and years, you'll start to see that people actually come out of that mind controlled state. They would start to become much clearer of thought. They would start to become more peaceful. They would be people who come from within rather than people who react from without.
Nice. And, that's the conversation JC and I were having in the last video we did on the GANs. When people are making GANs, which is the gas in its nano state, which is one of the substances used to make these units, and you've got it just sitting in your house or in pain pads or whatever, there's less hunger, more energy. So we are probably something that we really would naturally do if we hadn't cut ourselves off from it for so long. But we're reconnecting ourselves with connecting with this energetic field that's around us all the time.
Well, Cary, you just recently got back to your GANS factory. Can you describe what you experienced when you walked into that room?
God, I love it. I was gone. I traveled and I left my jars of GANs that I had been making down here in Florida. I went to Michigan and I was like, God, I can't wait to get back to my GANs. And now I'm back and I got my stuff unpacked, and so I've got my little jars here in the room, and I haven't reset the factory back up. I've got to do that. But just having the GANs around me, it's like, I don't know, like an uplifting energy field. It's subtle, but it's difficult to explain because I meditate and I'm, pretty positive a lot of the time, and I'm surrounding myself with great people who are forward thinking. So I have a lot of good energy in my life anyway, but there is a whole nother level that happens with having the GANs near me. I really like it. I missed it when I was gone from it.
Yeah, there's been a lot of people that are noticing this, and we even have ways. There's a fella. Where is he from? Arkansas, I think. Don't quote me on that. I'm not absolutely certain, but he was on one of the workshops a couple of weeks ago, and he had a question, and he asked Mr. Keshe. He says, "I've got these three layers or three containers of GAN sitting on top of one another, and the one in the middle, it's dynamic, it's moving, it just all of a sudden it'll just a lump will break off the bottom and shoot to the top and float around for a bit and then flow down to the bottom, and it's just constantly raining in reverse all the time." And what Mr. Keshe described it as, we looked at his system and we discovered he had a very heavy GANs at the bottom, a medium weight GANs in the center, and a very light GANs at the top. And we know that the plasma will flow from a stronger field to a weaker field. Just like air will flow from a high pressure area to a low pressure area. The GANs does exactly the same thing. And what immediately came out of that conversation was, here is a very simple, easy to make demonstration toy, like a lava lamp that you could have sitting on your mantle. It's in constant motion. It'll never use up its energy. And people will go, well, what is that? And this is plasma flow in a dynamic visual system. So we have the tools, rudimentary tools, granted, but we do have the tools now to be able to visualize an actual plasma flow, which is very cool. Some of the innovations that are coming out in the next, I would say 3 months, maybe even shorter than that, are going to blow minds, absolutely blow minds. And Vivek touched on it a little bit earlier. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up, I wanted to show the video, but we did a test and it just wasn't going to work. On the 93rd workshop, the one that happened just yesterday, or today if you're in Italy, because it was Thursday morning for them, Wednesday at midnight for myself. There's a researcher here in British Columbia. He's only a few, maybe an hour away from me, and he has taken the Magrav unit, the 3-coil stacker. He's made 5 of them, and he has configured them in a certain way where he is now generating plasma fields, plasma force fields, and they are visible. You can't see it on camera, but he has no reason to be deceptive. And I trust this guy as much as I trust myself. He's telling, when he describes this, he is telling exactly what's going on. And he can see the beginnings of the plasma field, the actual, I can't say it's a physical field, but that's what people are going to recognize. The beginning structure of the spaceship. He's got a little bit of tweaking, a few adjustments to make, but I figure if things go well, within 2 or 3 weeks, he will have a visible light body sitting in his living room in the shape of a spaceship. I think I just blew Cary's brain cells.
No, you didn't. But you know what I was going to say about that, that's so cool, is that, I mean, without getting into the whole story, I was led to these scrolls in Peru that were kind of channeled through from 1960 to 1978. And they talk about spaceships or flying saucers being vehicles of consciousness, and that they're driven by our consciousness. And that's just instantly what comes to my mind. And I need to do a show again on the scrolls, because it's really awesome information. And they're available online. People can read them. But this guy was downloading information as big as a blueprint and writing it in perfectly straight lines, like he was a printing machine for this cosmic mind. 12 minutes for information, for 10,000 words on a sheet as big as a blueprint. And really it talks about flying saucers being vehicles of consciousness. And Vivek, you were talking earlier about the plasma field being also kind of a consciousness field. And I loved, you showed us that picture earlier of Vishnu and the eagle. And you had the story that went along with that. Go ahead, tell us that story.
Okay, you're referring to this picture on screen right
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
Okay, what that is Vishnu riding his vehicle Garuda. Now that's an allegory. Vishnu is consciousness. Garuda is the Magrav vehicle, and it's very fitting for what we are doing here at the Keshe Foundation. Forget religious connotations. These beings didn't come down here in a religious way. It's Christmas here in Singapore today. Let's take Yeshua. He didn't come down here and say, I'm here to start a new religion, put me up on a pedestal and worship me. He said, this is how I am, this is how I think, this is how I behave, this is what I do. Be as I am, do as I do, think as I think, feel as I feel. And that's what
Well said, Vivek.
Yeah, and that's what he was trying to bring to the people in a very simple and easy to understand way. If someone sits down, reads the Bible, and tosses out the dogma and really pulls out the gems, the hidden gems inside the Bible, that's what you will understand.
And the same thing with Hinduism. And, I think every religion basically has these principles buried in it that people weren't capable of understanding at the time. And they had more advanced beings coming and saying, hey, here's the light, here's the truth.
That's right. I mean,
But
if you want to talk about Hinduism, let's go back to the ancestor of Hinduism, which is the Vedas. Now, the Vedas were not a religion at all. They were a way of life. They were science, They were mathematics. They were healthy living. They were exercises. They were where you could live, how you orientate your house in relation to the earth, in relation to the sun, so that you receive maximum benefit from the Magrav's plasma that's coming through the atmosphere. That's what it was all about. It was nothing to do with religion at all.
Beautiful. And they were from 5000 BC, right?
Even before
35.
that.
Yeah.
The
So, I
bases
mean,
were even before that.
yeah. So we've had advanced knowledge that I think one of my teachings in 21st Century Superhuman, my book, is that we are just at this phase. This is why this is called the shift of the ages. It's why it's called being predicted by the ancients as the greatest evolutionary leap in human history, because we are finally capable of understanding our relationship to the world around us, that our thoughts literally create our reality through quantum physics, and we're capable of understanding this knowledge that's been carried forward for thousands of years and apply it in a way that's going to really teleport us to the next level of being in this dimension. And prayerfully, we will do it by bringing peace into this world, peace and abundance for all, because source energy is abundant always. It is, and that's what the Magrav energy teaches us. That's what the Keshe plasma energy teaching teaches us is that there is abundance flowing every second. And all we have to do is, create some simple methods to tap into that and bring it into our lives.
Well,
Exactly. And it
one of the big things that came to my mind when I started working with the Keshe technology is these devices teach us we don't need the devices. The folks in the Philippines, you mentioned about the factories. We've just set up a Keshe Foundation in Germany. I wish I could remember. I think there's 4 or 5 other countries that are on board with us now. We've got a city which will be announced shortly, as soon as everything is finalized with that, which is going to be the Spaceship City. It'll be the center of the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute.
How exciting is that? I can't
this
wait.
is real, folks. This is not a hoax. This is not a scam. We have entire countries embracing this technology and dying to make it work. We have got folks like Vivek and myself, just Joe average. You saw me walking down the street. I'm just a regular guy. I'm building systems, and I've been wondering, on a personal note, I've been wondering why I haven't been diving right into the physical aspect of this in such a way, because I love making things. I'm a tool maker. I like working with my hands and creating stuff. But I am being drawn to be patient, wait, learn as much as you can, teach as much as you can, because the more I teach, the more these shows that I do, and the more I talk to people about this, the better I understand what I'm dealing with. But I'm being drawn to not needing the devices. And that's going to be very exciting when I am able to just go Apple and have an apple in my hands. I'm not there yet. I know it's entirely possible, because an apple is simply a collection of Magrav fields organized in a certain way that we perceive it as an apple. That's all it is. There's nothing more
Beautiful.
mysterious about it than that. Once we learn to organize our thoughts, organize our intent and our emotions, because emotion, energy in motion, that's our source of plasma that we can work with. We organize that with our intent to what we want, and it manifests in front of us. Once we're clear enough, and we're anybody can do anything. This is something I learned this when I was really, really young. If you forget you can't do it, you can. And it doesn't matter what it is. If you're scared about jumping over a stream, you're always got that doubt in your mind. Oh. If you don't think about it and you just do it, if you're being chased by a bear and you don't have time to think, you will vault that stream. So let go. Let go of the outcome. Let go of failure. Let go of I can't, and just do it. And when we get that clear, I'm working on it. I can't say I'm an expert at it, but I can see how that is the path. And this is what these devices are showing us. The health pen. I mentioned before the folks in the Philippines. There's one fella in the Philippines. I think it's Renan. I'm not sure if it's Renan or if it's the other fella that he's working with. But he used a health pen for a little while, and then he realized, I do this with my finger. And now he doesn't need the health pen. He just points at what hurts, and it goes away. Because we are the plasma. We don't need the devices. Because the devices, again, even the health pen is a plasma system organized in a certain way so that we perceive it as a copper coil with this black stuff on it. But it's just plasma. Just like your fingers plasma. Just like your thoughts are plasma. It's all the same stuff. This is the as I mentioned before, this is the ultimate raw material. And it's everything.
Really well said, JC. And I'd like to, let me toss a story out here. It's a little bit of a sideline, but in my book, I talk about Lynn McTaggart wrote a book called The Field, and she also wrote a book called The Intention Experiment. And she's a British journalist who wrote about the last 60 years of experiments in consciousness and quantum physics. And one of the stories she tells that is so cool, and I think when we think of having peace on the planet, when we think of healing the waters, when we think of what you're talking about, that these tools that we're developing through the Keshe Institute are really to teach us about something that we will ultimately know how to do without the tool, because we are the tool. We are a vehicle of plasma energy. We are a vehicle of consciousness. But this one story that she tells that I just love is that they did a prayer experiment when there was this fever, and people were dying from the fever, and it was a terrible epidemic. So they prayed for 2,000 of the people, and they kept 2,000 were the what do you call it, the basic group that they didn't do anything for. Of course, the 2,000 that they prayed for got better faster, and less of them died. But the secret of the experiment was it happened 6 to 10 years after the epidemic. So when we're just beginning to learn how malleable this universe, this world that we live in is, and we have the capability technically now of understanding what we're capable of understanding. And so
in a really rudimentary sense, you can see this play out day to day. Anybody can see this. If you're a people watcher, you already recognize this. You may not have put the dots together, but it's there. People who are habitually annoyed or constantly stressed or bummed out all the time, can't find happiness somewhere for some reason, whatever, the reason why doesn't matter. When we're looking at this, the people who are in constant agitation, they're always sick, their life sucks, nothing works for them, they're failing everywhere. Things just don't work for them, and they're always struggling somehow. People who are happy-go-lucky, I don't care if I have a meal today, doesn't matter, I don't care what I do, rarely get sick, rarely have significant difficulties in their life. It's a very broad strokes view of this, and it shows you in a clear way that anybody can see that, yeah, your thoughts create your reality. If you're walking through the woods and you see a shadow and you think it's a bear and you know it's a bear and everything in your core being says it's a bear, you're going to poop your pants even though it's a stump. your reality is that's a bear, and you will react. You will wrap a field of this it's a bear energy around you, and that will be your reality for the time being until you've altered that emotion, that energy you're putting out into it. If you interact with someone and the first thought you have in your head is I don't like this guy, doesn't matter what these people do, you're not gonna listen. You're not gonna get absorb any information, even though it's awesome information that may be coming in. You're going to create a field that limits your reality at that point. So, the real stress of this is relax. Don't worry about it. You can't screw up because we're energy. We don't go anywhere. The body might die, but you're not going anywhere. You're still going to exist. Your energy is still there. Your consciousness is still there. You're just going to change form. You're going to enter a different aspect. So, don't worry about it. Don't be like, adrenaline junkies. Don't be crazy and just leap of faith, jump off a cliff and expect to fly. Use some common sense, obviously. But when you're working with this kind of technology, when you're looking into this technology, don't worry about making mistakes. You can't make a mistake. You can create a learning opportunity, which is awesome, or you can fail. Which would you rather have?
I'd also like to invite those who doubt. I mean, I think I've seen a big broad spectrum of that, showing up on some of my posts, like, oh, can this really work? And, just trust the force, Luke. I mean, yeah, let's trust the possibility that we can grow into a new comprehension of our existence here. And I think that's part of the experiment that's going on right now.
Yeah, even if you're a scientific individual, I love science. I got into theoretical physics when I was a kid. I got into electronics. My dad was a ham radio operator. I started working with electronics when I was 5 years old. So I can say, yeah, I'm pretty much a scientist. I enjoy it. I love the thought processes. I love the construction, the design, all of that sort of thing. So I also can see it from that perspective as well. And for those people who doubt, look at the facts. You've got a device which is not conducting electricity. It can't. It's just like a piece of glass cannot conduct electricity. It can't happen. Yet, when you plug it into the wall and you plug an electrical device into it, the device works. Where's the doubt? I mean, it works. It's very, very simple if you can step back from as Vivek says, the dogma, because science will say, well, that's just not possible, even though right there in front of you it is happening. You need to step back away from that dogma, away from that preconditioned programming, because that's what it is. When you go to school, you don't go to school to learn how to think for yourself. You go to school to learn how to parrot information. Those who think for themselves don't generally do very well, especially in the latest type of this schooling system. But we need to learn to see things as they are and think for ourselves again. And once you do that, some of the stuff that was previously hidden just jumps right out at you, and you just don't believe, how did I not see that? Because it's right there in your face. And that's with the health stuff, with the food stuff, with law, with everything. As soon as you can let go, these truths just are right there. So the only thing I can say to the doubters is, if you want to learn it, awesome. I will teach you everything I can. I will teach you how to think if that's necessary. I'll teach you how to do the research, how to find these things if that's what you really want to do. If you don't want to learn it, that's fine too. Don't learn it. But don't get in my face telling me that, oh, this is all a scam, this is all crap, this is, there's no way this can happen, if you're not willing to look at it in a peaceful and open manner. Because if you do look at it in a peaceful and open manner, you're going to see this is absolutely true. And there is no way around it.
Yeah. I want to commend you both, John and Vivek, because I'm around you guys in these discussion groups often, and I see the patience with which you just continuously respond to basic questions. And I'm just
I thank you very much. And I think the reason why Vivek and I were drawn to this is because we can do that. There's no point having a teacher who's going to get upset and scream and yell and tell the students they're idiots. The whole point of learning, and for me, for teaching, for doing these shows, is seeing that aha moment when the eyes light up and they go, I get it. That's my reward.
True. So kind of across the board, any other things jump out into you guys' minds that are consistent questions that you get, or
just most of the questions are the people can't make the distinction between matter and plasma. And that's the biggest thing that we deal with is, how do I get electricity out of this? Well, you don't. You get plasma out. Well, I don't know. How does it, plasma doesn't run a drill. How does it run a drill? Well, plasma is everything, and it mimics electricity. And the drill goes, oh, well, this is kind of new. It's like you can live on seal fat and rice if you want. And you do that for 70 years, and you think that's all there is. And then somebody brings in a lasagna. You're going to go, I can't eat that. I can't live on that because I live on seal fat and rice. This is the same thing, except we're instead of adding more limitations to our systems, we're opening the systems up to absolutely no limits, which is really hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. And they want to think in a limited fashion because that's what they're used to. And I sympathize. I can understand completely where they're coming from because I was there. I was there 5-10 years ago. When I started working, the first thing that got me into the awakening process was learning law and learning the deception of law and how we've been essentially lied to our whole lives. We've got corporations charging flesh and blood people where the flesh and blood people have no recourse. They can't call the corporation up on the stand. It's a piece of paper. It can't speak for itself. But people don't see that and they just accept it.
And I've seen the same thing with the monetary system,
Exactly.
Like a couple of years ago, it came to my mind. I mean, I learned through the writing of my book, and I came to the realization, studying Michael Tellinger's stuff and the Ubuntu philosophy, that the monetary system is something that was imposed on us so that there could be people that could keep harvesting energy off of us, and it really wasn't needed for us to operate in an abundant way on this planet. And when I first heard it, I was like, oh my God, that's impossible. How could we ever live without money? And now I see it as a total reality, kind of at the edge of my world. And I see a lot of ways that are emerging in my world that I can live beyond the old systems of getting money, or ways of making my life work.
Yeah,
and I think about that a lot. Yeah, go ahead.
The specific details of each aspect, because this is systemic. It doesn't matter what system you look at, it's the same stuff.
Yeah.
The details of of whatever system you happen to look at aren't really relevant to this conversation. What I'm looking at is the necessary shift in your thinking, in the way you view stuff, is the same throughout. You have to realize with energy, first of all, we have been shown, okay, we've got electricity, we've got gas, we've got nuclear, we've got solar, we got wind, but it doesn't work very well. We've got all of these little boxes, and we're told, well, this is it. This is all there is. No, not even close. Those are little teeny tiny fractions, little minute quantities of energy that we've been told this is it. This is the be all and end all of energy, where the be all and end all of energy is the universe. And we can tap into all of the energy of the entire universe. Each and every one of us can tap into that vast quantity of energy as soon as you forget about the boxes.
And what's even more interesting is that with this Magrav's power unit, a lot of people forget, but Mr. Keshe has mentioned this time and again. On a single power strip, you could have devices that are 240 volts, you could have devices that are 120 volts, you could have devices that are 12 volts DC, and they all will operate. You don't need inverters anymore, you don't need converters anymore, you just plug them straight into the same power strip, every single one of them would work. How is that possible with electricity? With electricity, your devices that are 110 plugged into a 220 volt socket would blow up. But with plasma, they all operate. And they operate even more efficiently than they would with electricity. That's the beauty of it.
That is incredible. I'm curious, Vivek or JC, either one, where do you guys see this going? I mean, again, we're just in the baby stages of understanding this. Maybe not where do you see it going down, way down the road, but where do you see it going just even in the next few months or year? You know, what are we going to get? How are we going to begin operating differently?
Well, you need to understand, everyone needs to remember that this is not Earth-based technology. This is space technology. Whatever you would expect that you would need in space and other things that you may not expect that you would need in space is what is coming out. Because the way, in order for someone to achieve sustained space travel, they need to know that they are in an environment which is safe, that is protected, that they can be able to feed themselves, heal themselves, and live very comfortably while they travel in space. And the best way to do that is to show on Earth itself. Your home becomes a spaceship. That's what the Oasis unit is all about, that Mr. Cash keeps talking about. Your home becomes the spaceship. You don't need to eat because plasma is constantly feeding you whatever you need at the point that you need it. If you feel a little under the weather, you use plasma to bring your body back into balance, and so on and so forth. And even in terms of telecommunication, today we pick up a phone and we say that, okay, I'm going to call my friend. With plasma technology, you think it. It's zero latency communication. It's instantaneous.
Mm, I
Your
love it.
friend
Are
could
you
be in
starting
Mars.
to notice? Are you starting to notice because you've got that unit there that you're communicating more easily with people that you know without even having to call them up?
Yep. I'm getting a better perception of the environment around me. Talking about not just people, but plants, animals, the birds that are flying around outside. Whenever one comes and lands on the ledge, I always look at it and say good morning. He looks at me, eyeballs me for a little bit, and then flies off.
Oh, I love it.
Quite interesting.
If you for the folks who aren't quite at that level, because that is what Vivek described, most definitely, it's absolutely true what he's talking about. But if you're a little more earth based, let's look at it this way: the vast majority of all cost of everything is energy, whether to create it, to transport it, to use it, to recycle it, to repair it. The vast majority of that cost is energy. We are bringing a device onto this planet where energy is unlimited, abundant, and free. What is that going to do to the cost of living? What is that going to do to the financial system? Right? In one small aspect of this perception, money suddenly becomes irrelevant. What's the point? I've got all the food I need. I got a place to live. If I don't like where I live, I walk over to a control panel and I dial in Bermuda and I'm in Bermuda. Everything My whole house, everything just picks up and goes to Bermuda. I've got all the transportation I could possibly want. I can be anywhere on the planet in 10 minutes or less. Healthcare. If I feel out of sorts, I walk over to my machine and I say, "Hi, machine, I'm feeling kind of out of sorts. Can you give me a hand?" And the machine goes bloop and you feel great. A doctor, a doctor will only be useful if you poke a hole in yourself or break a bone. There won't be disease. There won't be homelessness. There won't be hunger. There won't be a lack of water, fresh water, clean water, because the system will provide all the water you could possibly want. Commerce goes away. Money goes away. Lack goes away because you will have no lack. Everything you could possibly want is right at your fingertips. If you want to be an artist, be an artist. If you want to be a writer, be a writer. You don't have to struggle anymore.
And that is what I think the bottom line of what I teach about is remembering the creative beings that we are. You know, like, what did you want to do when you were 5 years old or 10 years old that got pushed away with having to comply with the system that you had to go out and work in and answer certain questions and participate in a certain way in order to just have food and shelter? But we're talking about being able to move beyond that and move into who is the creative being that I really am. And I will ask people that question. You know, one day I had a young guy fixing a chip in my windshield, and I said, "Well, what would you do if you didn't have to go to work anymore?" And he said, "Well, I guess I'd go hang out around the house and work." And then I said, "Well, what would you do when you were done with that?" And he said, "I guess I'd go hang out in the woods." You know, and we almost are going to have to re-educate ourselves as to what is it to be a free, creative, juicy being in this environment and on planet Earth. And you know, it's like we have this addiction to these old ways of not having enough and fighting over who's going to own what. And you know, that some people are good and some are bad. I mean, we're going to have to move into a civilization where we recognize our oneness and that we are all these beautiful, incredible, creative beings,
Yeah,
and
with this new tech,
reacquaint ourselves with what that is. Go ahead.
yeah, with this technology, when it comes out, and it's coming out, like there's no stopping it. There's no way this is even going to slow down. It's going to go faster and faster from this point on, and continue on until we don't need the technology anymore. We just do it. When this technology comes out, creativity is going to be the currency. If you want something special, if you want help from your neighbor, anything like that, you will do something for them. An artist. I can't really say actors because storytelling is storytelling, but I'm going to use the word storytellers instead of actors. Musicians, artists, actor or storytellers. Those are the people who are going to be the elite. They will be the most sought after people. People who aren't creative, haven't found that spark yet, those are the ones that are going to be struggling. They're going to be left behind. They'll have everything they need, but they're going to be sitting on their butt in their backyard going, "What do I do today?" Because they'll have to be retaught how to be creative, how to be a child, how to look at a system and go, "I want to change it. I want to do something different." And that's one of the things that a lot of the public schooling just beats out of kids. It takes that completely away from you. You're not allowed to be creative. You're not allowed to express yourself in a creative fashion.
Another thing I'd like to toss in here is one of the things that I know Mr. Keshe has talked about, and it's sort of the periphery of this movement, is that we will literally be able to clean up things like Fukushima quickly and easily. We'll be able to clean up this terrible pollution that's happened from the BP oil spill in the Gulf, where fish are dying and dolphins are dying and the water is polluted and there's flesh-eating bacteria growing in the water. You know, we'll be able to clean these kind of things up relatively quickly. And even starvation, we've got 1 billion people on the planet without enough food, shelter, education. A child is dying every 3 minutes of waterborne illness. You know, we'll be able to literally clean up systems that we've taken a long time to break down into an unhealthy state.
Yes, and clean them up almost instantly.
Right. How close do you think we are to understanding how to do that?
There are groups, small groups, mind you, that do understand this. The initial core of that type of cleanup technology has been sent to Fukushima, and there are people there who understand it. They know how to create the fields, to create a magnet for the radiation and draw that radiation out, render it harmless, not destroy it, because the plasma doesn't destroy anything. It creates it creates a condition where it's harmless, and they are doing that. There, it's in use. This is there's documents. I'm pretty sure they're on the KesheFoundation.org website, where these documents are out there showing that this is what is going on. I'm in contact with a group, GG Trust, down in South America. They're working with Dave in Peru right now, and one of the fellas that's with the GG Trust got in contact with me, and he mentioned about a mercury problem down in Peru. The same technology that they're using in Fukushima could likely, with a slight adjustment, be used in Peru. I put in some feelers into the foundation, but right now everybody is so busy just getting the energy units out so that we can stop hunger and homelessness, that something like mercury, which is an important issue, mind you, but if it has to wait a year, it's not really a big deal, because it's been there for 200 years now. And the effects of the mercury, a health pen, a CO2 pad, will stop those problems. So we do have the technology now to be able to just set them aside. Okay, this is not a priority right now. Hunger, homelessness, getting the energy systems out, getting people's thinkings changed, those are the priorities, and that's where we're focusing on right now.
Here's a suggestion for those who are currently building orgonite devices. You put coils of copper into your orgonite devices. Nanocoat them. See what happens.
Yeah, you'll be amazed at the output.
Great suggestion. I love it. So nano coating the copper that goes into the, oh, and are people putting literal copper coils into orgonite?
Yes. They put different sorts of coils. They put flat spirals. They put springs,
Brilliant.
different sorts of coils into the orgonite devices. If you are out there building a cloudbuster, nanocoat it. See what happens.
Brilliant. Brilliant. I love it. That's awesome. The other thing I'd like to encourage, and I know you guys would too, is I see a lot of, because I'm in Facebook a lot, and that's one of my communication systems with a pretty large audience. I see a lot of people say, oh, well, yeah, they're building Magrav units, but when can I order one? And then they start complaining about the price or whatever. Because we're in this kind of like fast food culture where people in the modern world want something just handed to them. But I would really like to encourage people to play with building your own, and because it's going to empower you. Yes, you can order a device. I ordered my first GANs making device, and I loved it because it taught me something. And we have the other videos that show how to make the healing pen, how to make the GANs. I just want to encourage you, and I think you guys would too, start making your own stuff. Start your own GANs factory so you get this energy around yourself, whether you make your own unit or buy a unit. Start playing with coiling the copper, we explain in our other videos where to get the proper copper wire. And JC is just so great at demonstrating how to wind it, because it's really a simple process. And if you will start playing with these things yourself, and then nano coating, there's great videos on how to nano coat, both with heat and with caustic. You'll get, something will happen in your life, and it's intangible, but it's a really incredible gift. And if you will start playing with it and teaching your friends, supporting your friends in playing with it, you're going to open up a whole new world for yourself.
Yes, most definitely. Just on an ending note here, because we're coming up to 2 hours, and most people they don't want to do 3 hour shows. Just on an ending note, it's an estimated that the initial release of this technology, just to get everybody so that they're basically on the same page, we need, 49 billion devices. Now, even with 1,000 manufacturers turning out 1,000 products a week, that's going to take hundreds of years. We need millions of manufacturers turning out millions a week to be able to do this in a reasonable amount of time, which is that's just not feasible. So please learn the technology. Not everybody's going to get it. Granted, it's a stretch on some of this stuff. Some of it's a leap of faith. Some of it you just have to take at face value. Okay, I'll just believe what they're telling me and store it as data. You'll understand it later. Some people are going to get it right away. But learn the technology. We have 93 now, as of yesterday, 93 3-hour plus videos explaining this technology in great detail. That's a lot of information. What's 96 times 3 hours of information? 300 hours of information out there. Granted, some of it's waffling, some of it's computer issues. A 3-hour video, you'll have 40 minutes of information in it. But learn the technology, learn why you coil the wires, learn why you nano coat. When you get that understanding, you will intuitively, many people certainly will intuitively they'll have a dream or a thought. I wonder if I did this. Do it. Try it. See what happens, because we're at the very, very beginning of this technology and we are encouraged to play with it. The more you know about it, the more successful you're going to be, the less of a learning curve you're going to have to come up with your own stuff. Like the fella they're manufacturing a toy, and he's going to feed his family from this little discovery he had from his 3 little Tupperware containers sitting on his shelf doing strange things. It's that easy. And when you understand the why, taking the next step, going, well, what if I did this, makes sense to you, because you'll understand what it's going to do. It's really not that difficult. There's only a few rules you have to follow with this technology. And if you follow those rules, then the possibilities are unlimited. We don't, like I said earlier, we don't know the limits of this technology at all. We know that what we're working with is absolutely unlimited, but how much control we have over it, we're yet to discover. So I
I would say
encourage.
people that are out there playing with it are discovering new things every day too.
Oh, yes, definitely. And I totally encourage people, please, I beg you, learn the technology. If you have the ability, if you have 10 fingers and wrists that move, make your own system. Don't wait for it to be built. Don't wait for it to be put on the market, put on shelves in Walmart. It's going to be a while before we're anywhere near to the point where anybody can go and just buy one of these. We are right now, from all of the orders that we got, we're caught up. The products have been manufactured. They're going to be shipped out just after Christmas. So anyone who has an order in right now will get your unit. They're done. They're going to be shipped next week. But again, like I said, we need 47 or 49 billion units. We can't provide that. There's no way we can provide that, not in a reasonable time frame. So learn the technology, ask questions. As far as I'm concerned, there are no dumb questions. There's only dumb answers. If you don't know something, ask. If you want to learn, express, yes, I want to learn, and then step into that learning.
So
The
JC,
most important thing
and
to do is
go
when you
ahead.
do that, when you step into that learning process, play. Don't look at it as work. Don't look at it as I have to do this. It is drudgery. But once you do that, your creativity falls apart.
Yeah.
Play. The way Mr. Cash plays with his devices is that I hope you have as much fun as I do with this creative process. Play with it, play with it, play with it. Don't come from a point of desperation. You've already experienced a lot of desperation in your lifetime. It's time to let go of that. Put the desperation aside and say, today I'm a child and I'm going to play. Play the way that children are meant to play and just play with it.
Well, my two bodhisattva friends, I really appreciate the heart and soul place that you're each coming from, because that's such a great way to share this material. So where would people ask questions? We're going to put under the video the link to the free blueprints. We're going to put under the video links to videos for how to nano coat, how to make GANs, because we did that. And one of the reasons, maybe everybody isn't a student and they don't want to go study, 90 basic course sessions, and maybe they'll just learn from these little video clips that we're doing. Maybe they'll just learn the basics of it. Even if they do that, it's a great start. And to get something going, to share it with friends, to learn from each other. Can we put a link to the Keshe site and the Keshe forum? Is that what we'll put underneath here? Where
We
would
can
people go
we
to
can
ask
do that.
questions?
There's community.keshefoundation.org is a Keshe run forum where you can, if you are serious about learning, if you just want to go in and bitch and complain and tell us that it doesn't work, please don't show up, because it's totally wasting our time, because we already know it does work. And if you want to learn it, if you're interested in learning this stuff, by all means, come in. You will be totally welcome. And there are hundreds of people there who will bend over backwards to help you understand this stuff. The Spaceship Institute YouTube channel, all of the videos up to now are available there. They will eventually be moved on to the Keshe Foundation servers, but that's a big job and it's taking a long time to do this. Some of the videos are on the servers already, some of the earlier ones, but the Spaceship Institute YouTube channel has all of the workshops, the health workshop, the Spanish workshop if you're Spanish speaking, all of the public teaching workshops. I even think there's some Italian workshops on there too. But we're trying to cover all the bases as best we can. There is the Golden Age of GANs on Facebook, which is another excellent source to come in for, especially for people who are just getting started and they're curious about this stuff. They can come in and ask questions, see some of the latest information, because a lot of the people that are working with this technology, we're in there and we're posting our stuff in there. This is what I've done. This is what I get. There's some people in there posting that it doesn't work, which is fine. I mean, they're still wanting to learn. They just don't understand why it doesn't work. And most of the time, it's something really simple. They saturated their coils with GANs, or they didn't wire it properly, or their nano coating was incorrect. Something simple. Where else? I can't think of any other really good. There's Skype rooms, but they're by invitation only. If you know someone in the Skype room, they may get you in there. We're trying to clean them out because we had a whole bunch of people come in and try to disrupt the conversation. So we're trying to clean those Skype rooms out right now. But yeah, there's all kinds. If you just go onto Facebook and type in the word Keshe, Keshe, you're going to get a plethora of pages all over the place.
Yeah.
You may find we've got native language pages all over the world where you can go. If you only speak Hungarian, you can go. There is a Hungarian speaking page that'll explain all of this stuff. Just do a search, have a look. If you want to learn this stuff, if you're serious and you're honest about it, you will find exactly what you need to find. So just keep looking and ask lots of questions, because that's how you learn.
Yeah. And you can always post questions under these videos that we're making as well, and we'll do our best to maybe answer them in the next one. I'd like to at some point do something on units that people can add to their cars. So maybe we can play with that for a next level idea. And I'd like to invite everyone to naturallybetter.tv, which is a website. It's an online television network, and that is where this video is being produced as a show for that network. We have a lot of 21st Century Superhuman guest shows, which are fun and interesting, kind of cutting edge information, people that are making progress in the world. And there's many other hosts on Naturally Better TV besides myself, and they're really great people who are bringing forward some of this new information on the planet. So I would say thank you so much for being here with us. And this is an exciting time to be on planet Earth, an exciting time to be part of all this new knowledge coming forward. Anything else? Any other thoughts from Vivek? You have any other thoughts? Want to toss out?
Only one thing. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Namaskar.
Many blessings, everyone. Much love, and we will see you out in the great adventure of becoming more of who we really are on a peaceful planet.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.